So what do we get out of the way first? Your name change or my hat?
Let's get your hat out of the way because that is preposterous.
Right. What's the point of the name change?
Paul Foster. I've changed it by deed poll.
Colonel
Paul Foster. I am now officially a member of Shadow and have been given the task of commanding anything that I want. So I've decided to command Moonbase, and I'm also going to command Skydiver as well. So anybody else can just mind their own business. I've taken over. I've taken over. I don't see any reason why I can't do that. So, yes. And Ed Straker, he better had mind his P's and Q's. Otherwise, I'm after his job as well because he is a cheeky monkey.
For those of you who have no idea what we're talking about here, we are talking about the seminal live-action Gerry Anderson series from 1969, UFO, of which I've got it on. I've got the box set on DVD and I have the box set on Blu-ray.
Indeed.
And it's fabulous. It's fabulously dark and adult, which is why ITV at the time, ITV went, "Hi, yeah, Gerry Anderson, yeah, Thunderbirds, kids, spaceships, yeah, stick it on a Saturday morning." No, it wasn't meant for a Saturday morning. It
really wasn't. There were a number of things within that show that were quite scary, and still are actually. Come to think of it, so yes, I'm so glad that you approve of my name change.
Yeah, we'll let you have that. Some of the later episodes were so problematical that they were never broadcast. They got shunted into like a nighttime broadcast, and even when ITV rebroadcast it in the mid-80s. They had the same problems. And then in the mid-90s, when the BBC repeated it, they stuck it on at 6 o'clock in the evening. They got to about 3 of the last episodes and went, "Oh, no, we've got to put them on later."
Well, I'm currently watching it on Forces TV on Sky, and they're not showing it until 10 o'clock. So I think they get past every watershed problem but it is fabulous. And we mentioned this kind of during our preamble earlier on.
Yeah.
The special effects are still sensational. Apart from the fact that the miniatures across the board, although they're problematic in terms of what's possible,
practicality,
but in terms of miniatures and the model making that went with them, they are fabulous. And you know, when you Skydiver is a brilliant, iconic design. The mobiles are as relevant today as they were in 1970. You could put them in anything today and they would still look incredible. And in fact, I mentioned to you off camera, if I had the money and I could get somebody to build me a studio scale mobile, that I would do that. You know, I remember Martin Bauer was doing a number of these. You could commission him to make you one, but the problem was that it was based on a tank,
tank
toy that was made for sort of an Action Man kind of thing. And that was the chassis, and then they built the vehicle over the top of the chassis. Problem is that lots of people who build studio scale models have bought them all up, and those that are now on sale are on sale for hideous amounts of money. So you can't really get G.I. Joe. I think it might have been.
It's something like that,
something along those lines. But they are just absolutely extraordinary miniatures, and the one that was on Sub Smash was the one that was on this week had Skydiver, the Skydiver miniature in it, and you're kind of looking at it and you see it going underwater, the underwater shots. I believe that they stand up to anything you will see now as far as miniature photography is concerned, and they should be benchmarked as that. Absolutely sensational.
Well, the funny thing is, lunchtime today I was like, oh no, I'm gonna watch when I have my lunch, and I thought, do you know what, I fancy a bit of Star Trek: The Next Generation. So I dipped back to season 6 episode, I think it was, Relics, in which Scotty comes back.
No.
Hey, old Scotty comes back. But the takeaway from that episode was, okay, it has been remastered in as much as it's now in high definition. And one of the things they had to do was they had to go back to the visual effects elements and actually redo all the composites again, you see. But luckily, they were able to do that because they were shot, on 35 mils, so they were able to do them. But the thing that struck me watching at lunchtime was that all the visual effects in that episode look superb. Essentially, they find what's known as a Dyson sphere, which is kind of like a huge structure that surrounds the sun, yada, yada, yada. That just still looks fabulous, right? All the shots of the Enterprise going in it, and it kind of like has to kind of orbit the sun inside, all looks fabulous, hasn't dated at all. Now looks even more glorious now that it's all been recomposited back into high definition. Why does it look glorious? Because it was all done with models.
Yeah, absolutely. And another one that if people haven't seen the film, that's well worth watching to see what is possible with miniatures is Aliens. Aliens has got arguably the greatest single miniature set piece in any science fiction film, and that's when the dropship falls out of the bay of the Sulaco and then goes down to LV-426, and you see it going through the clouds. There's a couple of iffy little bits as it's going through the clouds. You can kind of see it skipping away and it moves slightly erratically. But when it comes in and it comes in towards LV-426 and it all opens out and it comes into land, that is an absolutely sensational.
Especially there is that one shot when it drops the APC off, and the camera is then following the APC as it's coming towards you. And you see the dropship kind of lift and just go off in the background.
And it peels away the other way.
And it's Brian Johnson was the crew, because he kind of like had just come off Empire Strikes Back and working for Jerry Anderson, so it was his crew doing it. And again, it's literally models on puppeteers' wires, and they're just kind of lifting them off. We'll start the show in a minute.
It is. I mean, this is a show about model making, and
exactly, yes.
And those kind of things are up there as the kind of pinnacle of what is possible from miniatures and model making. And I remember the first time I went to cinema to see Aliens. First time I saw it, I remember seeing that shot, thinking that is the most extraordinary thing.
We're going to have to do perhaps one of our midweek shows. We'll actually dedicate it to our favorite films with models. We can get away with that.
We could,
because it's model related. But I agree with you with Aliens.
I think Aliens is probably up there. I still think Sulaco is an extraordinary. And the other thing, quickly before we sort of get onto the show, is Sulaco was only built on one side. It's only a one-sided miniature. It's a huge 6-foot-long model, but it was only built on one side. And in the film, it only passes the camera one way each time. It is
exactly the same with the Enterprise in Star Trek, the motion picture. You only ever see it from the port side throughout the entire film. You never see it. Well, you see a top-down shot of a smaller model, but you only ever see it passing. When it passes the camera, it's always passing from right to left. You never see.
So all the detail and painting must have been on that side then. I wonder if they bothered.
No, they did. They did do the whole model, but it was just done that way for some reason. Anyway, should we start the show properly now?
Yes.
I'm alienating so many people. I just talked about films. Talk about models.
Show some respect. I'm a colonel, for goodness sake.
We are talking about models. We are talking about models.
No,
anyway,
any of this nonsense, I can say what I like now that I've been promoted.
Yes. Right. Anyway, hello everybody. Welcome to tonight's movie club, Jerry Anderson podcast. Actually, I had a nice retweet from Jamie Anderson during the week, but we'll come to that later on. So we've got quite a packed show tonight, which unfortunately has been taken up with the first 15 minutes of us whittering on about films and television shows. Never mind.
Absolutely nothing wrong with that at all.
Nothing wrong with that. We are going to do a special on our film and television models. Absolutely, that is going to happen. Yeah. Probably actually this Wednesday.
We'll do it this Wednesday because we can do that absolutely without ever
prepping at all.
Yeah. And also, what we'll do is we'll expand it into science fiction models that you've made, and I'll tell the story of of scratch building Starbug 1 from Red
All right,
Wolf.
okay. Well, that's quite interesting.
So,
right. Shall we move on to because we've got quite a few things to talk about tonight. So we'll move on now to the first item tonight. And this is from the home team. So I'm going to let you talk about this because I am, of course, utterly biased. But it is the new Airfix 72nd scale Bristol Beaufort Mark 1.
We mentioned this a month or so ago on the show. Time seems to have sort of fallen into some black hole of of unreality at the moment. So I'm not sure. This could have been 1 month or 6 months ago, but I think it was reasonably within the last sort of few months. We mentioned this, and it's now out. People have got this kit to hand, so very exciting. I'm hoping to get one of these at some point in the very near future. But we're now going to get we've now got a chance to see what this thing looks like. Very exciting release, important aircraft. A lot, despite the fact that it's not as famous as a lot of its kind of compatriots, Mosquito, that kind of thing, the Beaufighter. But it was a very important type. And the two versions that are offered in this kit, a 22 Squadron aircraft and a 217 Squadron aircraft, were both important in attacks on German battleships, Gneisenau and also Admiral Hipper as well. And the two versions that are offered, this one here, this is the one that went against Gneisenau on April 6th of 41, and then there is the secondary one, which is a Coastal Command aircraft, which went against up against Admiral Hipper in February of 1941. Personally, I like this version better. I think this is so cool in those colours, and that will be the one that I think I'll choose to build, despite the fact that it's got black undersides. And currently I'm having nightmares painting black. As many of you will know, if you watch the Wednesday show, I'm literally dreaming about this damn color now. So, but I think this is a very interesting one. Also, it's from Cornwall. It flew out from Saint Ivel in Cornwall, or Saint Evil in Cornwall, and so I like the idea of building something from arguably my favourite county in the country. So that'll be kind of cool as well. We started. Mike Williams has kindly sent us some photographs.
Yeah, thanks, Mike.
So yeah, cheers, Mike. So we're able to see what Airfix have offered in their kit, and it looks to be a really nice product, nicely detailed, it's got quite a lot of finesse to it, and it looks like it's got some interesting design features as well. So so we'll take a look at some of the pictures that Mike has sent. You can see that it's pretty traditionally broken down, it's pretty sensibly broken down. It looks like you can tell straight from the bat that this kit includes some design ideas that you will have seen in some of the other kits. I'm currently building the Lancaster, which has got spars that run through the fuselage into the intersections of the wings. You can see the holes for those in this fuselage, so everything will lock together pretty ... if the fit is as we would expect it from this kit, and if the plastic is as we would hope. I will put that in with a ... at the end, but you can see it's got a pretty full interior with this. All of the inside of the inner fuselage halves are really nicely detailed, so that's great. Moving on, we can see some of the detail that they've incorporated onto the surface as well. I really like the way that they dealt with the fabric on this. It's got that kind of nicely subtle scalloping to it, rather than it being like trenches at Verdun. It's got a nicely sort of subtle kind of feel to it, and I think that will look great under paint. It'll also look great as well once it's weathered, and as I've done on the Lancaster, I've been dry brushing those fabric surfaces just to kind of elevate the detail a little bit more and add that kind of subtle feel to it. So I'm kind of impressed with that. You can see that the rudder is separate on this kit. Elevators aren't. They're molded in a kind of a neutral position. I doubt very much whether it would be difficult to remove those parts from the tailplane should you want to deflect those and have them at different angles. Check your references. Not sure how they kind of looked on the ground. I did the same thing with the Lancaster this week. I wanted to deflect the elevators very slightly, and I checked my references to see how much that was seen on the real aircraft, and it was seen, so I was kind of happy just to have something. But should you wish to do that, also the softness of the Airfix plastic probably means that taking those parts away and separating the elevator from the tailplane is probably nothing more than a run over with a scalpel down the sort of the hinge lines on each side, and then snapping it away should work really nicely. Moving on, surface detail across this looks to be really nice. I can't see, and I can't judge this accurately from the photograph, because these are only the images that we've been sent, but it looks like the surface detail is pretty much what we've seen before. It's always difficult when you see surface detail photographed by a digital camera, because often, because of the lighting and the way that the camera processes the data in front of it, sometimes the panel line detail can look a bit more defined and definite than it is. I've noticed this on some of the models that I've built, certainly some of the Airfix kits that I've built, where the panel lines look to be a little bit more definite than they are. But in this case, it does look to be quite subtle, which is great. And also, I know a lot of model makers like panel lines to be a little bit more definite because it holds the wash. And with a sort of traditional way that models are painted and weathered these days, that is quite an important factor. So that gives you an indication. I would think, building this, it would be also pretty simple to rivet this model as well, should you want to do that with a rivet R or you know, any of those kind of riveting tools, just put lines of rivets on it. Or you could do exactly as I did on the Lancaster, going back to that, and put the rivets on and then paint it, and then all the rivets disappear. So it's entirely up to you how you do it. Probably put the rivets in after you've painted it. Also, this looks to be part of the weapons bay and the propellers. Again, seems like there's a lot of time has been spent on this kit, both internally and externally. So you're getting quite a lot of detail. And for the price of this kit, which I don't think is hugely expensive,
$19.99.
There you go. So I think that the amount that's being offered in the box is going to make this a really good value kit and a nice project as well. We mentioned this, I think, on Wednesday when we were talking about the Airfix Blenheim and talking about the glazing on that as well. A lot of your work inside is going to be worthwhile because you're going to see a lot of it because of the clear parts. Also, the same with the bomb bay, also wheel bays, that kind of thing. So nice to see that level of detail, and nice to see the options for open bomb bays as well as the closed panel, which is the part that's on the right hand side of this picture. Moving on. You can see here that the engines have been manufactured to be as simple as possible to build. Two parts to cover the two banks of radial engines, and also collector ring detail as well. You can see it's a single part that's an insert that goes into the cowlings, which are molded in two sections. Again, anybody that's seen a number of the Airfix kits that have got radial engines in British subjects, Beaufighter, Lancaster B2, and this kit will have seen this setup and seen this design. It's a simple way of approaching this, and it creates a kind of a clean finish. You've still got a little bit of the kind of cleaning up around the edge of the cowling itself. That ring sits inside the two halves of the cannon, so there is a little bit of a joint to sort out there. But overall, it's a really simple way of creating these parts without it being misaligned. Everything will line itself up and lock itself up, so that's nice. You can see the detail on here. Looks to be quite delicate. I can't really see on my screen, but I'm assuming that there is fin detail on each of the cylinders, so that'll be good. Paint and weather those up, dry brush those a little bit to bring out the detail. Jobs are good, and they'll look great inside the cowlings. With you may want to add a little bit of additional detail in there, ignition wires, that kind of thing. But overall, once the propellers in place, that'll more than pass muster, I think, for anybody building this kit. Cockpit detail, some of the internals, like this instrument panel. That looks really nice. I think that'll paint it well. I didn't take a close look at the stickers in this kit, but I'm assuming there are some for the instrument panels.
There is a decal for the instrument.
Yeah, so that'll add some additional detail onto this. But painting that, paint it, dry brush it, a little bit of washing, and that'll look great. I think I really like that. I'm looking at part 22 there. That looks to me like one of the undercarriage doors. The reason I mention that and why that's intriguing is that it's got some very large pegs on the top of that undercarriage door, which I'm assuming are quite positive locations for each of those doors in their open position. I'm all for that. I have to say, I'm all for those parts being molded as part of the door, and then structure of the internal bay being part of the door for open sections like this. There is nothing more annoying and more frustrating than trying to glue an undercarriage door onto the underside of an aircraft model where there's nothing to hold it in place other than
fresh air,
fire and brimstone.
Yeah.
And we've seen this becoming more and more a feature of kits. Anybody that's built a Tamiya F-14 will have seen this in place on the F-14, where they've got huge chunks of the inside of the bay is part of the door, and they almost snap into place and they hold everything perfectly aligned. This looks like it'll not only align the doors properly, but it'll give you a really nice a nice sort of structural integrity to these really delicate parts. So that's a really nice design idea. I'm really up for that. Undercarriage detail. This shows off the main undercarriage legs. I'm assuming that part below it is part of the torpedo.
Yeah, that's the rear torpedo fins.
Slight. I have. Again, it's difficult to see on this because I don't know how big that part is. I have slight concerns about the thickness of the fins either end of that part. But again, a file and some wet and dry will take those back nicely and thin those out. So that's interesting. It's also interesting on that part as well. And I've started noticing on some of the other pieces around this kit. They've got these knockout pips that are attached onto the edges of parts. We used to see that a lot with Dragon kits, but that takes the place of ejector pin marks that appear actually on the surface of individual pieces. So that's a real step in the right direction. So some of the kits that we've seen lately, some of the Airfix kits actually that we've seen lately, and some of the ones I've built have got those ejection pin marks actually molded on faces of pieces, usually inside, not on the outside. So it's good to see that some of these delicate pieces like that are being molded with those parts in. They can be a little bit annoying to remove, but I think it allows the detail to be maintained and the finesse of the parts to be maintained. So that's brilliant. Love it. It seems to be quite a lot of design changes on this kit, which I'm starting to see. These are smaller details, shows again a lot of the finesse that is with this. Another thing that seems to be standing out with this kit, and that may well be down to, that's obviously down as well to the way that the molds for this kit have been designed, are that the attachment tabs to the we'll call them sprues, but to the runners for some of these really delicate parts are really small in this kit. They're smaller than I've seen in an Airfix kit for a while. Some of these parts are very tiny, and you're not going to find those difficult to remove. So that's really impressive. More I see of this kit, the more impressed I am by it, I have to say. You can see on here the delicacy of the attachment points there for some parts that I know will be tiny in the flesh, especially the machine gun there, and also the way that those have been mounted and form part of larger structures. The machine gun, for instance, is noticeable on here, in that you've got the attachment point to the top of the cylindrical ammo drum, and then to what looks like a mounting peg for it to go inside the cockpit, rather than it being attached to a delicate part of the barrel where you need to clean that up and you run the risk of damage. So again, very impressive. Very impressed by how Airfix's sort of approach to this kit and the approach to the molding and production of the actual molds that have created it. Seem to have sort of stepped up a gear. Very good. Clear parts again, canopy and the sort of the glazed part around the nose have been molded in large sections. I would imagine everybody that gets a chance to build this kit is going to be reaching for an Edward masking set for a lot of this. A lot of the panels, though they're flat, they are typical of the period with curved edges around them. So that does make masking them a bit of a niggle. But we do have, we mentioned on Wednesday about using bare metal foil. So that's something that you could certainly look into. But Yeah, very impressive. Decals, these are the stickers that somebody's designed, seemingly not haphazardly as well. They seem to be designed in rather a nice way. I'm not sure who that would be.
Oh, for goodness sake, man.
So mentioned it earlier, you get two versions, two options within the kit. You get a 22 squadron aircraft, which is in the sort of standard RAF camouflage scheme, and you get a 217 squadron. There's just no way I'm going to do that and put myself through doing another dark earth and green aircraft, but this is lovely. I really do like this. So this is the 217 squadron aircraft that it says there went up against Admiral Hipper, the German cruiser. So this would be the option. Two really nice choices, and and unlike some manufacturers that are out there, two different choices as well. Although they're both ostensibly British subjects, they're in very different camouflage schemes. They're from different parts of the kind of RAF, so it's a nice choice. Sometimes you'll get a kit where it's just there's two options in there, but essentially it's the same squadron with different codes. That's not two options. These are two distinct options, so that gives you plenty of choice. And I would imagine that already the aftermarket decal world is sharpening their pencils to offer you other choices as well, should you want to go for something like that.
So how do you fancy doing another aeroplane with black undersides then?
I genuinely don't ever want to paint anything again in black. It is.
Yeah, we've managed to secure a photograph here of you actually painting the your Lancaster, and there it is.
Black. Everything's black. It is extraordinarily difficult to get it to. I mean, you can paint it black. Just paint it black, as a famous band once sang, but it doesn't look right when he's trying to weather it and sort of trying to bring it down and everything. I have a black aeroplane that's kind of not entirely black, as can be kind of seen on the.
I actually think that is one of the black is one of those things, because I actually look forward to doing something in the future with black either painted black or black undersides, because I kind of want to now try that whole kind of like marbling technique to see what I can do with black, but also do it but with different colors and shades and everything, so that you're then putting the black glaze over the top to try and retain that kind of weathered patina. It
is. I mean, I don't know how easy or difficult it is to see.
Yeah, to see that.
Yeah, so that's and tail fins. You can see how kind of random that is. It's a real challenge, I have to say. And if you sort of look at any of these kind of black aircraft, the ultimate challenge would be to do a TR1. A large-scale TR1, because they are extraordinarily varied in the shades of, well, they're not really black, they're a dark grey, but they've got that kind of dusty look to them and all that sort of stuff. And as we mentioned on Wednesday as well, Lancasters were absolutely filthy by the time they'd kind of come out of service or been shot down. They were just awful. So I'd sort of planned with this model that I would have it finished on Friday, and then I started weathering it, and then lost my mind a little bit, and then. But I do fancy that. I do fancy that Beaufort in that color scheme, and I've already bought the paints to do it. So looking kind of forward to that.
Let's have a shout out to everybody who's watching, everybody who's given up their Sunday evening to watch two men in their 50s, frankly, waste bandwidth on the British internet system. Let's have a big shout out to Draws Breath, John Patrick Huston, Damien Mullen, Dave Swindell, Ian Hartup, Ian Rusco, Steve Moore, Stephen Pryor, Vincent Murphy, Dave Coward, Greg Woodbridge, scrolls down, Douglas Hunter, Jerry Doyle, Yoava Fretty, Paul Milligan, Tony Smith, Shane Weir, Dougal McWoogle, Mike Williams, Simon Parker, Ofer Cohen, Pavel Krupovich, Rob Monfils, Tony Smith, Ian Goldstraw, Garen McGuinness, Dave Fleming, Brian Wilton, probably saying hello to people twice here. Mark Ryan, Tony Smith, he says, I just got a UFO model from their website. Good work, Tony. Jose Tiexido, Tim Maunder, Dave Fleming says UFO, great band. Yes, he's absolutely right there. Johan Olivia, as in the actor. Peter Marshall, Les Miller, Craig Sargent, who says morning, because Craig lives in the future.
In the future?
He lives in the future. He lives in that New Zealand, and they live in the future.
In that there New Zealand.
Mammas Pitzilis and Moz6510 models, who incidentally, we're trying to get to the bottom of that HP Spitfire. It's utterly bizarre. I'll tell you about it after the show. Essentially, it's an Airfix Spitfire Mark 19 that appears to have a Hewlett-Packard logo on the box, and we're trying to work out why. Craig Sargent says, where are all the stencils? They're all there, Craig. In fact, it's probably the... just go back and just show Craig the stencils, because I'm not having that. There are actually quite a lot of stencils on there. Probably the most comprehensive look at Beaufort stencils there has ever been in the history of ever. So he said modestly. A big thank you to everybody who's watching this evening. Yeah, that's the Airfix Beaufort. Actually, just before we leave the Airfix Beaufort, one thing I do like, and I do hope they do more of this in the future, is they've done this in the past, and they've done it again on the Beaufort, and that's the Matchbox-esque descriptive text on the front describing what's going on. And it says, April 6, 1941, Brest Harbor at daybreak. The German battleship Gneisenau is put out of action for 6 months by a torpedo dropped by a 22 Squadron Bristol Beaufort, flown by Flying Officer Kenneth Campbell and his crew. Shot down by intense return fire, Campbell was promptly awarded the Victoria Cross. I think those are brilliant. I think they bring the box art to life, and it draws you in. Certainly, that was one of the things I remember with Matchbox kits was... It wasn't just box art. There was something, literally there was that voice telling you the story behind the box art. And you were like, yes, I must have that.
Yeah, indeed.
I think it's fabulous. I would certainly encourage the home team to do more of that.
I have to say as well, we mentioned this before when we first talked about this kit. Adam Tooby's artwork for this is sensational. But it's also an extremely brave choice of positioning of the model. It's very rare to have box art showing the model from behind, because you don't really see what the aeroplane looks like when it's not nose onto you. But the fundamental reason for that is because there's no other way of showing it attacking Gneisenau. There isn't. So it's kind of it's almost less of a piece of box art than more of a piece of art, if that makes sense. He's approached this with the eye of an artist, trying to capture a moment in time. Yeah, and having all of the elements in play.
It's got a touch of the Michael Turner's to it, hasn't it?
Yes, it absolutely has. That would be a fabulous print to hang up in your workroom, wouldn't it? It is just beautiful.
Not the first time Adam's done this, because he also...
No.
Incidentally, there is a shot in the Roland Emmerich film Midway that honestly, it looks like they looked at the Airfix box art and went, "Yeah, we want that in the film."
Yeah. Does that mean I've got to watch Midway though?
No,
good. There's a question here. The Interesting Modeling Co. In the instructions, there's an icon with a hand or finger pushing that undercarriage flap. Any idea what it means? I don't have the kit, so I can't check the instructions, unfortunately.
An icon with a hand or finger pushing that undercarriage flap. Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah. Usually they will explain at the beginning of the instructions what that's there for, but don't know. File that alongside Hewlett-Packard Spitfire is a bit of a mystery.
Yeah, indeed.
Which we'll be covering in our future show, modelling Arthur C. Clarke's Modelling Mysteries.
we don't really know. Anyway, moving on from the Airfix Beaufort, we come to a kit from AMP. This was something that we mentioned, I think, last week. And that is 48 scale Carmen HH43 Husky. this thing here. And this is what happens when you mate a helicopter with a leaf blower. You get this crazy looking machine. I love these helicopters. They just look so extraordinarily agricultural in their their design. They're just great looking things. There's so much detail on, so many little bits and pieces. I like the intermeshing rotors. My good friend Ian is watching this, so I'm making sure that I got the name of these right. I don't want him sending me another message saying I'm an idiot. The kind of intermeshing rotor blades on this. Now, this is AMP had originally done another kit of the Husky. They'd done a HOK1/HUK1 released in 2019, but that was a different helicopter. That was, although superficially a similar kind of design, that was a much earlier version. So this is the later version. This is the Lycoming T53 powered aircraft. So you get that huge kind of exhaust that comes out over the top of the tail boom between the fins. So it's a completely different one. I think this might be the same version though that Italeri modelled in 32nd scale.
That you've ruined my Brian. You've ruined it. My trivia quiz. Which this isn't the first mainstream kit of a Husky, which was actually, well, Italeri reboxed it from testers, but this was actually a Hawk kit from the olden days.
And yes, from before, before the release date of Script for a Jester's Tear, which was released in 1793 by all accounts.
Yeah.
38 years. 38 is it?
Stay on target. Stay on target. This I think this kit was released before I was born. Before either of us were born. Probably before either of us were born. Added together.
Yeah, indeed. But it's been released on and off over the years, hasn't it? We've seen sort of lots of incarnations of it. But this is the kind of the latest version of this. From what I can see in the CAD renders of this, or the renders of this, it looks like it's going to be mixed media as well. From what I can gather, it looks like there's photo etch as well as plastic in this. Yeah. But also the levels of detail looks to be pretty cool.
I actually dug up a review of the previous kit that was on Hyperscale, and there were some photographs of the plastic bits in there, and they do look exceptionally well detailed.
Yeah, I have to say that, and also there's a huge number of color schemes for this thing. So that's and not just American operators. I think there are especially the brighter ones in kind of aircraft grey with international orange panels and that kind of thing on there. So, but also, I mean, they do seem to be going down this route. We looked at the little Bendix egg beater, didn't we, last
yes.
week? Which we really loved. So this is kind of a sort of step out towards that. We've mentioned about looking at sort of more unusual kits this year. This would be definitely one I think I would buy to have a look at and put this thing together. And because there seems to be quite a lot of opportunity within what I can see from this. And again, helicopter fans will tell me more for detail within the cockpit, and also presumably for detail within the rear kind of bay area of the model. It looks as well. They show this as clear. I'm not sure if it's clear on the rear, or whether that's simply there just to show the interior detail. But yes, it is clear. Yeah. Also, going back to see everything, it's almost like we wrote this. They used quite a lot of these, didn't they, in like Thunderbirds episodes?
I was just going to say that this is almost where we came in this evening. This distinctly has the look of a Jerry Anderson kind of creation, doesn't it?
It does, and I'm pretty sure that they
probably kit bashed a lot of these.
They kit bashed these helicopter kits to produce like sort of jet versions of them. I'm sure. Yeah. So it's a nice size for a model as well, and one I am really looking forward to. I can't get past the idea that I really fancy building that little Bendix thing that I think we're both going to do. We may do that as like a joint project at some point when that comes out. But this is going to be coming out. I did a little bit of research on this helicopter before it came out. This is designated 8H 43B, which was originally an H-43B. They designated HH, I think, was there to differentiate various helicopters, and this was like the rescue version of this helicopter, which I thought was interesting. 200 of these were built, which I didn't know either. So yeah, that's a really cool subject, and helicopters are, and also I'm assuming as well, because of the way that the rotor layout is, as with that AH1 that we mentioned a couple of weeks ago as well, you can presumably have it so that the rotor blades are kind of almost in line with the rest of the airframe, so it might not take up quite as much room. Helicopter models look fabulous, but they can be difficult to store. So you can have it like that on a little base. That's certainly a kit I'm really looking forward to. And if we can get hold of one, we'll
get hold of one way or the other. In fact, you just reminded me that kit that I've wanted to build for years is the little Airfix calm-off hormone.
Oh, really?
It's because I got one. This is going back again 35, 36 years ago. I got hold of the Arthur Ward Model Ward of Airfix package thing, and they include that and the handy page Heracles in there. And I remember looking through the sprues and thinking, this is actually really a neat little kit. It was kind of like early to mid 80s Airfix, so probably early 80s Airfix. Still kind of like, kind of just after Haldane Place era had ended. And it's actually very nicely detailed. That and the Carmen Sea Sprite are apparently very good helicopter kits.
Is this? Do they fall in the category of kits that Airfix haven't really reissued?
The Sea Sprite hasn't been seen for a very long time. Probably mid 90s was the last time that came back. And the same with the calm-off hormone. I think the last time that was seen was kind of mid-ish. I know it was released late 80s in new box art, early 90s, but no, mid 90s. That's it. They haven't been around for 25 years.
I don't recall ever seeing either of those kits in boxes that wasn't a photograph of the model.
No, they
were both originally, I think, released in that appalling box design that Airfix did. But I don't recall ever seeing them with real artwork.
Yeah, I will dig out. Well, on your next segment, as I'm listening intently, I will dig out some photographs of those things. So let us crack on to. Well, here's a new name to conjure with, because I'd never heard of these before. And we are playing slightly catch up here with Micromere and their various associated brands. This is a company called Garbuzz. Garbuzz. Yeah, me neither. They're doing a 72nd scale. It's a MAZ TZ200. Now, this again is, they've already done a version of this last year. They did the MAZ 200, and this is the TZ200. So the previous one was just like an open kind of like flat. Like an open back truck. This is the refueler version. Interestingly, the only other model that Garbuzz appear to have made in 72nd scale is the delightfully named warship of the Ukrainian Cossack Seagull. Look it up; you'll find it is really quite bizarre. And for people who say that model kit companies are a bit too conservative, yeah, a warship of the Ukrainian Cossacks Seagull. It does look rather wonderful, but they're doing this. This is the TZ refueler in 72nd scale. I think it's fair to say this is. I think you could call this slightly higher end medium run. It's not quite the kind of like the standards of Edward and people like that, because they made the transition from that kind of medium run to full on industrial. But there's nothing on this that I'm looking at which makes me kind of like think, this is going to be one of those kind of really kind of soapy touches where it fits kind of models. And in fact, it does look actually quite comprehensive. And in fact, a photograph of the finished model does show that it does look rather nifty. I do quite like the look of this. So you don't see that many kits of Russian refuelers, and certainly there are lots of aircraft out there now. But this looks interesting. I like the look of this, and if I come across one at a decent price, I might bag one. But would look good next to an Airfix MiG 19. I feel MiG 17 rather. Yeah. So
it looks okay, doesn't it? It looks quite comprehensive. There are certain aspects of that are giving me pause for slight concern. Some of those some of the smaller what look like railing or hose fittings or something look like they could be very delicate, but the rest of it looks really nice, doesn't it?
I think my Despine nippers would make removing those.
Yeah, I mean those the two that are in the bottom right hand corner, the way that they're attached, that could be interesting.
Got a kind of like a bit of a matchboxy feel to it. It just but I like it. And I think Garbuzz look like an interesting little brand, so we're going to keep an eye on them. Keep an eye on them.
Another one. Moving on, we come to Micromere.
Themselves,
and they have done two versions of the Myasishchev 3M.
Easy for you to say.
I've been practicing that all day. The Myasishchev 3M D and the 3MS, or more earthily, the Bison C and the Bison B. Now, this thing is about as confusing a family of aircraft as I think I've kind of come across. So I'll start with the simpler version. First of all, the Bison C. The Bison C was the final, from what I can see from my research, final production version of this. They didn't make very many of these things. In fact, according to the research, only 9 Bison Cs were made before they closed down the Myasishchev OKB production facility. The Bison B, on the other hand, seems to have been made in lots of different versions, and I can't quite narrow it down. This is the C version. This is the later version. The Bison B is a more complicated thing to kind of narrow down, because there were lots of different versions of this, seemingly all involving re-engined aircraft when engines that the Russian authorities wanted to use were not available. So they had all sorts of things. So just going through this kind of list for anybody that wants to look this kind of thing up. These are all NATO codename Bison B. So there's the 3ME, 3MS1, 3MS2, 3MN1, all again Bison Bs, 3MN2, 3MSR1, 3MSN1, and finally subject 36. Now, so I think I get the sense that this is a stock Bison B, a bomber version of it, rather than anything more exotic than that, a refueling aircraft or anything like that. But certainly away from kind of designations, and I'm sure that people who are more sort of into all of this kind of thing would be able to narrow down a specific subvariant within this family of aircraft. But we can certainly see that this is a 140 full scale kit, and it's going to be nicely detailed from what we can see in the pictures. Again, going back to other Micromere kits, we're assuming that it will be, maybe not Tamiya level of finesse, but certainly buildable within that class, that genre of sort of mid-range kits, and produce a nice replica of a really classic 50s, 60s Cold War design. I really love these kind of Russian jet bombers. When I first started looking in, sort of becoming interested in aircraft, you have the sort of observer's book of aircraft, and these would appear in sort of small little 3 views, and you could sort of see the layout of these aircraft. They always look really exotic and really cool. I've always really liked the layout of this. It's got a Harrier's undercarriage setup to begin with outriggers and central wheel layout. It just looks mean. So we're showing you the Micromedia have not shown anything other than these schematics, so we can't give you any more details on this. But you can see that anybody that's interested in Cold War Russian jet bombers will be able to pick these kits up and finally build kind of versions of this. There have been other kits of this aircraft over the years, but I don't think there's been anything fairly recently, and certainly not in 144 scale. And Trumpeter maybe have done some of these. They've certainly had a look at some of these jet bombs. But it looks okay, doesn't it? It looks rather nice, and you can see from the pictures how different the airframe is across these two versions as well. You can see that's kind of much more like a bear, whereas the kind of the I guess it's the earlier version is kind of much more sort of feels more streamlined. We don't have a release date on this thing, but we're assuming that it'll be sometime later on this year, which will give you plenty of time to try and work out exactly which variants are which, and do your homework on the minefield that is Russian subvariants of Maya. It's Mia Sischev? Is that Maya? That's what I said, wasn't it? Not Maya.
It's
pronounced Maya, not Maya.
No, it's pronounced Maya, not Mia.
Oh, so it's Maya Sischev rather than Mia Sischev.
Not Mamma Mia, okay. Mamma Maya.
I probably pronounced it both ways, actually. Thanks, Pavel. I didn't. That's kind of good, actually, because you sort of see these things and you read them in your head, and we come on here to try and pronounce them as well as we can. And sometimes we do get it wrong, so it's good. So it's Maya. It's pronounced Maya Sischev. There you go. And I've been trying to practice that all day, so I hope I've got that right. Maybe Pavel actually can just give us like a brief synopsis of the difference between what amount to about a dozen. This is my printed sheet of just Bison B versions. This is part of my research from today. So it sort of gives you an idea of how confusing this is. But irrespective of that, good choice for a kit, and also in 144 scale as well. These are big airplanes, so in 144 scale, this will be a nice size that will be that are allowed to build a nice replica of this aircraft, but not take up half of your workspace. No, that's an absolute no. He doesn't want to get involved in that. He absolutely doesn't. No, I can. You know what? I really can understand why you wouldn't, because I mean, it makes Canadian F-86 Sabre wings seem like going out and buying an ice cream. It's unbelievably difficult.
I do remember what was the they used to do the kind of like bound volumes of it was Air Pictorial, Air Enthusiast. That was it. The bound volumes used to be able to buy of Air Enthusiast. Yeah, I remember there used to be a bookshop in Park Street in Bristol where they were flogging them off at about £1 each at some stage back in the 80s, which was like brilliant, aircraft reference, that I can buy for £1. Yeah. And I always remember there was an article in there about Monino, and all the weird aeroplanes that are there. And in fact, if you do a Google satellite view of Monino, it does look fabulous. It just looks like this. Yeah, it looks like a Jerry Anderson scrapyard.
Well, again, going back to that, it's almost like when there were a few in Thunderbirds where they would take a B-58 Hustler and they put the engine pods on like the fin at the back. You kind of look at that and go, "Well, that's just ridiculous. Why would you put those?" And then you realise that the Russians had done it with various aircraft throughout the sort of the 50s and the 60s. But yeah, I mean, they are just amazing subjects for models, and also the weathering potential. Yeah. If you were to do an abandoned one of those, Mia
Sischev.
We're just going. I'm just Mia Sischev. There we go. Is that right?
It'll be waking up in the middle of the night, and Liz will say, "What's wrong?" And you'll just go, "Mia Sischev."
Next door, be banging on the wall. What's the matter with me? Mia Sischev. Oh well, good. No, that's good. That's always
now.
Good.
Now, how we can do a quick update, box art update here, and indeedy, the Airfix Hormone did make it through. Now that's around about the 1994 boxings with the grey stripe across them.
Yeah.
But it honestly, it's a fabulous kit. It really is. And the Hormone B was only ever included in the Airfix Model World book set. And then eventually it was released in America by MPC because it was, they were like a sister company at the time. Then in the mid 90s, Airfix released it as the Karmov B as well, which is the one I prefer because it's like dark grey and, kind of mysterious looking thing.
Yeah.
And the Karman Sea Sprite indeed also made it to a piece of box art, not particularly good piece of box art, it has to be said. And that's round about mid. Scalemates have this down as being kind of 1994. I can tell you that is much later because that's when they moved on. Well, you can see that the logo changed. They went from that rather nice logo to the one with the shading and marketing people. You see, they get bored. They change logos. And I've
got to say, it makes you realise as well. I having now seen those, I do recall seeing both of those kits with that box art. But it does make you realise when you're how spoiled we are with a lot of the box art. I know it tends to be a superficial thing for a lot of model makers when they look at box art, but it is an important sort of fundamental part of the package. It's what attracts you to it. And when you see those two pieces of box art, they are just rubbish, really.
I used to quite like that. I quite like that box. I thought that was rather classy, and I liked the grey stripe, and it just had an air of kind of quality and dignity to it. Whereas that was just kind of like all over the place. That's horrible.
Those two, they look to me like design sketches before they get to the final. They're sort of their layout roughs, no more, no less than that, really. But I have to say, these two kits, because it's so long. I mean, 1994. We're sort of talking
25 years ago, 26 years ago.
I think these would they fit within the vintage classics range? I think they're worth the reissue.
They are. I would agree with you, and they are fabulous kits. They really are. The detail in the Sea Sprite is actually quite eye-watering, and crucially, the Sea Sprite is all done with raised panel lines and rivets, which to me is what helicopters should look like.
Yeah. I mean, I've certainly had I feel the same way about the Puma as well. I think the Puma would be another one, and you just don't see these too often. And I appreciate that there have been, or there will be. I'm not sure if it's been released yet. There's going to be a Sea Sprite being released shortly in 72nd scale.
Is that Dream model?
Yeah, I think it might be. But
that will be corrected in the comments.
We're absolutely not inundated with kits of those two helicopters, so I think that might be good. I mean, it certainly fits in and adds another sort of layer.
Actually, I think ICM may have done the Karmov 25. I know one of the either ICM. No, I think ICM. Somebody has done a Karmov 25 quite recently. So again. Our more knowledgeable people watching the show will fill us in and correct us.
I mean, kindly. Like I say, they would. Yeah,
clear prop Sea Sprite in 72nd. There we go.
Clear prop.
And Tim makes a very good point. Whoops, Daisy. Tim makes a very good point. I'm going to catch up with him in a minute. He says Sea Sprite's still in service in Poland. Yeah, Polish Sea Sprites. They're rather. And Johan Olivia says clear Sprite Sea Sprite. Clear prop Sea Sprite.
That's a lot more difficult for you to say than me and Syschev, which I now seem to have right.
I'm from Dudley. Pavel's going
to, no doubt I'll bump it. If we ever get another model show in the UK, national championships, Pavel is often there. So
Rob Monfils says Ace Karmov. Okay, Ace. Yeah, I know. I've seen somebody else do one. We've overrun.
And yes, as an addition to that, wouldn't that Karmov be fantastic in 32nd scale?
No, I don't think so.
I think it'd be great. It'd be yes. I'm gonna start an action group trying to get a Karmov helicopter done in 35th scale. A 35th scale Karmov. And then we'll get one of those little things that Drew loves, you know, the little crop dusting, whatever they're called, the Karmov, is it the Hokum that he loves so much? The piston engine thing that spews out smoke all over. We get one of those in 35th scale as well. There we go.
Yeah.
And a 35th scale Puma.
Actually, got quite a few Pumas keep flying over here recently because I hear them going down the M5, following the M5. Yeah, Pumas. Oddly, I mean, we could talk about this another time, how utterly neglected the Puma has been as a helicopter subject. But I think helicopters get short shrift. We can talk about that another time. Perhaps we'll do a helicopter special.
The Puma is, and I've always said this actually since I've started, but Puma is absolutely my favourite helicopter.
Yeah, just nice.
And I just think it's great, and we're the same. Well, I don't live very far from Shawbury, so we get a lot of helicopters over here, all sorts of different ones. But we've had quite a lot of Pumas flying in pairs, backwards and forwards, over the last sort of few weeks, and every time it comes over, I'm like, oh, I really love the Puma. So there we go. Anyway, moving on. You have got a very unusual choice, I think.
Yes. Well, if you like spaceships, and if you like dinosaurs. Right, this honestly, this sounds like a Roger Corman film. Then what could be better than a kit coming out of the X20 Dinosaur? D-Y-N-A-S-O-R-E, or is it S-O-A-R? The Dinosaur. Now this is a fascinating machine because this kind of like it started off in the 1950s. This was originally going to be a reusable spacecraft for the American military and or NASA rather. The idea was that it could be launched from the ground by boosters and then would come back rather like the space shuttle and could then be kind of reused. It had an enormous amount of potential, and like so many projects that had an enormous amount of potential, was canned. They never even, as far as I know, they never even got round to doing any drop test flights from B-52s, things like that. It was a mock-up and some drawings, and that was it. But as always, things like this hold modelers' imagination. So this is I've forgotten the name of them again. AMP, one of the offshoots from Micromere, and they're doing one in 72nd scale. Now, these are only literally CAD sketches of it, but it does look like a fabulously interesting aeroplane. Actually, reminds me of the Ranger 7 from Buck Rogers in the 25th Century, if you remember that.
Yes.
It's, as I say, it's an important aeroplane to the kind of like the history of manned space flight and NASA and things like that, because this would have been the first reusable spacecraft, but for one reason or another, cost overruns, you name it, the usual kind of shenanigans that go with these kind of projects, it just got dropped, and they went in favor of disposable space vehicles, which of course then came to bite them in the backside a few years later, because they then went down the route of developing the space shuttle. So
do we have any dimensions for what this thing would have been? Because
yes,
it doesn't look that big, does it?
No.
But I'm assuming that it must have been reasonably sizable for it to be of any kind of use.
It was called the Dinosaur, or Dynamic Soarer. Yeah, Dinosaur, I think. We have actually. Hold on to your hat, Mr. P. It was actually very small. Crew, right. 1 pilot. Length 35 feet. 35 feet. About 35 feet, or 10.7 meters. Wingspan, right. 20 feet, or 6.3 meters.
And that would have been the actual dimensions of the machine had they built it.
The actual dimensions of that orbiting lander had they built it. Yeah.
So what do we have any clue as to what they would use something that small for? I mean, that's all like on F-16 dimensions.
It's all. Do you want me to read out? I could quickly read out the what it was it was essentially, it was seen as a kind of it was seen as an alternative to using capsules for manned space flight, but a reusable space capsule.
Okay. Oh, that makes sense.
Yeah, it wasn't. I don't think they had any ideas of using it like a space shuttle to kind of drop payloads into space and everything. But yeah, it's you know, I mean, this to me, you know, it's an interesting aeroplane. It like I say, for somebody like me who also likes kind of X planes and NASA planes, it ticks all the boxes. It also kind of like, you know, $6 million man looking kind of airplane.
Yeah, I
well.
was just thinking that the aircraft that crashes at the beginning of that, it certainly
also you'll love it because it was painted in black. And yeah, I'm all over that. And I know a certain Mr. Matt Irvin of a parish somewhere would probably be jumping up and down for that one as well. But I think it just looks like a fabulous looking machine. And certainly if AMP were to go the whole hog and actually do the launcher for it as well, the launch system for it as well. But I just as a standalone model, I like that, and that is certainly on my radar.
There's an interesting challenge to that, to paint it like the box art or whatever it was that you
that's NASA mock-up, yeah,
and paint it black, but have it looking like it's coming in re-entry with everything glowing. That would sort of make it a bit more interesting. Personally, I'm not sure I could do very much with this, but I think it's an interesting model of an interesting footnote within aviation, which is, you know, often. Yeah,
also, just reminded me, notes for Wednesday, films with great model work, The Right Stuff.
Oh.
Because if you go, I don't remember seeing any model work in The Right Stuff, there you go. So, the final one for tonight. We've overshot, but never mind.
We're going to have a look at the Mirage Hobby have released. Excuse me, I scratched my back. Halberstadt CL2, which is this. This is looks to be a reissue of a kit that was first issued in 2009. It seems to have some new parts, but mainly, I think the point of the reissue is to create an aircraft that is in the now I'm going to try and get this right from memory. It's in the Krakow Aviation Museum. They have one of these, and this version offers the markings of the aircraft that's in the museum's collection. That's, I think, the point of this. So, and that's why they've issued it. This is the first time I've seen anything on this kit, but it does look to be really, really nice. I've built a number of Mirage kits over the years, and they've always been nicely detailed and quite sort of comprehensive from what I can remember, although this is going back a while. But this does look to be really interesting. It's a mixed media kit as well, so it's plastic, and it also includes photo etch, and includes lozenge decals, plus the markings for I reiterate that museum example. So anybody that's been to that museum, and it sounds like a good collection, that museum will be able to build the aircraft that's in there. Now, there's one thing that stands out with this, and I can't quite work out why it's in there. If you go back to the box art, scroll forward again to the next one, to the actual, and again. Right there are two photo etch frets on there. As you can see, one appears to be plants. And I can't quite work out what they're for, unless that's part of the display in the museum.
Right, here we go. Every day's school day. See the photograph of the gentleman in the middle there?
Ah, right, okay.
You will notice there is a floral wreath,
right,
with a plaque in the middle, and that is what the photo etch bits are for. They are for the floral wreath.
Right. Oh, well, that's brilliant then.
In fact, it says leaves for the decorative wreath.
I didn't see it because I was looking at this on just in passing. So, if anybody's been to that museum, is that floral wreath actually part of the museum display as well? Is it actually on the aircraft still? Presumably, have they created like a wreath that's in plastic flowers or whatever, plastic leaves that's actually on the aircraft currently? That's a really interesting. A really interesting part of this if that's the case. But it does look really well detailed, this model. I hasten to say that it's an older kit because it's it's only 12 years old, for goodness sake. I mean, me and you are building kits from 50 years ago, so this is very old to us.
Do you know what's slightly throwing me about this? Because when you look at these CAD renders here, first of all, they appear to be highly detailed CAD renders.
Yes.
And that to me suggests that doesn't look like something from 10 years ago, 12 years ago.
No,
that makes me wonder whether this is all new.
Well, because you in the notes that you sent to me, you'd noticed maybe a reissue of 2009 kit with the new parts, and I had a look at the link and sort of did that, but I couldn't come to any conclusive decision one way or the other as to whether this was a brand new kit or whether this was a reworking of it. But I agree with you. If these renders are from the new kit, then this does look like it's a new product rather than. But if Mirage have already got this kit in their collection and all they want to do is replicate the museum example, I'm not convinced one way or the other. So if anybody has an in with Mirage Hobby, then be interesting.
It does say on the description here, it says highly detailed the model interior. So I don't know. I get the feeling this might be. I think what we're looking at here are the CAD renders. Is in the kit.
Yeah, it's in the kit. I also like as well that they're very specific on the rigging line is included in this. 2 meters of rigging line, which I thought was very. But it doesn't say how what that involves as to whether that's the kind of rigging line, the elastic rigging line that we use, or whether it's a different kind of material. But certainly, just going by what we've seen, including that photo etch. The photo etch looks really lovely, doesn't it? It looks superb. And the Halberstadt CL2 is a really lovely aeroplane as well. It's got really flowing lines to it. So it's a classic, isn't it? That's chucked around quite a lot, but this is a classic World War I biplane, and I think this will be kind of popular, and presumably will be popular for people who have sort of been to the museum. And I wonder whether or not, as well, because it's tied in and replicates that aircraft, whether, I don't know if there's a museum shop, whether it's something that will be part and parcel of what gets sold there. But you can see, I see in the top left hand corner, you've got the sort of the painting for that wreath. That's really interesting, and also interesting as well that they give you 2 options in there. One, they give it you painted with red and white, and they also give it you if you want to paint the background and just put the white on. Those decals are interesting in that they've tried to replicate the sponged over lozenge for the fuselage. That's really interesting, and it looks from that they've given you one block of this, which presumably you kind of cut out. Now I know that my mate Harris had built a World War I biplane earlier on last year, where I think he'd initially used decals to create the lozenge and then sponged over the top of it. I didn't really like the effect, so he ended up sort of taking the bull by the horns and airbrushing the lozenged sort of the polygons for the lozenge, and said it was remarkably easy. It was one of those things, that you sort of look at and you think, yeah, that's going to be really difficult. But yeah, the decal sheets in this kit are really comprehensive for both upper and lower wing surfaces as well. And I'm no expert on this, but the colours look to be really nice, don't they? Look kind of muted. I think the biggest hurdle for this kit is going to be the finish. It's going to be put in, as usual with a lot of German aircraft from that period. The finish is going to be extraordinarily demanding, I think, and you're going to find yourself that the majority of the aircraft is actually is covered in decals. So if you're not keen on decaling, this might not be the project.
I get the funny feeling you're going to be making one of these this year.
I really like it. I've sort of started getting into biplanes, haven't I? Of late, I must admit that they're holding a certain appeal now. And although I've only just done the Tiger Moth in 48 scale, and I've only done a couple or 2 or 3 biplanes, I haven't done a World War One, a proper, full blown World War One biplane project. I did a little Edward thing many years ago, which is rubbish, but not the kit, my version of it. But having done the Tiger Moth, I think I might have a crack at doing one of these and see.
Well, Mirage know where to find us. So
well, yeah, and indeed, and certainly this looks like a good, really good project. So, Brian Wilton, before we go, we have got one other to have a look at tonight.
We'll squeeze it in there.
Yeah, Brian Wilton has put mini art tractor and trailer in camouflage. I must admit that I was slightly surprised that
because we
didn't get knock-ins today.
Yeah, it's just a reissue with it's there were other newer shinier things that.
When has that ever stopped us? When has it ever stopped us?
True, yeah.
Look at it. We've looked at many kits over the last 12 months that have been reissues or repackages, especially mini art. They're so yeah, we'll look at that on Wednesday.
Just before we go on to the final item, I just again another Airfix kit, which is beautiful, is the Hanover CL3 rather, probably their best biplane that they did from about the mid-ish, early to mid-ish 1970s. But has to be said, on every single boxing there has ever been of this kit, they've always done lozenge schemes, but what's the one thing they've never included in the kit? Lozenge decals.
No, so absolutely not. And
if there's anybody from the home team watching tonight, vintage classic, I think that's. I probably you'll never make a profit on it. Because
absolutely
never make a profit on it because it'll all be absorbed by the decal sheet. But
and also, we're talking about models and modeling and classics and all of that sort of stuff, and lozenge. If anybody's seen an old scale models that had Ray Rimmel's build of the vac form Gotha bomber that he made, where he drew out the polygon pattern for the lozenge and then hand painted every single one across the surface of a 72nd scale Gotha bomber. Therein lies madness.
To a magazine deadline as well.
To a magazine deadline, yeah, absolutely. Blimey. No, I mean, that's what stickers are for these days, I think.
That's what sticker designers are for. Anyway,
sticker designers and stickers are for, and everything. And of course, if you've got lozenge stickers, you don't get any silvering.
That's true. That's very true. Let's bang on to the final one for tonight, and we will just we'll blitz through this one because we don't have much information on it anyway. But it is Soyata, who we highlighted towards the end of last year, who initially did a 48 scale Panther with full interior. Then they did the whole engine workshop kind of turret lifting devicey thing.
The crane.
It looks like it comes out of the International Rescue Thunderbird 2 bay, but they're doing in 48 scale. This is a double kit. This is a T90A main battle tank and a Tiger Gaz 233014 armored vehicle. This is all Soyata have shown at the moment, which is the box art, which looks absolutely gorgeous, and just some CAD renders here of the models themselves. But I tell you what, Soyata, they are coming in hot, aren't they?
I have to say that if these kits are anywhere near as detailed as they appear to be on these renders, these could be amongst the most detailed 48 scale armor kits ever made.
Well, you say that.
They have a look of I think, but again, I think Pavel's still watching this, so you may correct me. But I think Meng have done both of these vehicles. They've done both the Tiger and the T90. So we've seen these in 35th scale. This will be obviously the first time we've seen them in 48 scale. But they look really extraordinary. I mean, just looking at the tires and the wheels on that Tiger looks amazing. So. The one thing I hope, though, at some point is that we get crew figures to go with these as well, because there doesn't appear to be any at the moment. So that'll be interesting. But don't they look great? I mean,
I've
really
seen some
impressive.
reviews and some videos of the Panther and the diorama set they do with the turret lifting mechanism and everything, and that Panther kit looks eye-wateringly detailed.
Yeah.
I'm gonna have to get one.
Do we know if it's on sale yet? That is it on sale here? Can you get those?
Here we go. This is where people will hate us because they'll be going, I tune in and watch your show on Sunday. I end up buying more models. Unbelievable.
Yes, sorry.
I'm just having a quick look here. Let's just do keywords. Soyata. Let's have a look. I've just gone to a kind of like a lower soft based manufacturer kit company. Can't find anything. Let me just do Panther. Right, we've got Slug Fingers here is trying to. I've got Desmond Llewellyn's fingers. If anybody's ever watched the Bond films, whenever Q comes along and he hands Bond a gadget, look at his fingers. They're horrible. They really are. They're like cold sausages. Actually, nothing listed here for Seattle. So I'm just going to do types in. That's because I've been listening to Smirch Pod too much. So
all I can find is seemingly eBay.
Don't appear to have a UK distributor, but there's an opportunity there for somebody to come in and be the UK distributor for them. But I'm just having a look here on eBay. Let's have a look. Well, I found one here for the whole Panther and the Strabacran. £58, including free shipping from Hong Kong. Yeah, good luck getting that through British Customs. I'm sure they will be £48.76. Let's have a look. Anyway, we will get hold of one. I think as our duty to you, dear viewers, we will.
Doesn't look like it's on sale in the UK yet, does it?
No, we'll try and get hold of one though, because I like Panthers. I also do like that slightly masochistic thing of building an interior and never seeing it again. But I think I'm more inclined to get hold of just the Panther rather than the Strabacran kit in full.
Yeah.
Soyata, like I say, they have got a range of kits, and some of them are more towards the kind of like the manga and sci-fi end of things. But they started dipping their toes into actual vehicles now, and like I say, they've kicked off with that Panther, which was a hell of an arrival.
It does look. It really does look very impressive. And it would appear that the release of kits of Panthers is showing no signs at all of slowing down. I see that Meng have just announced. Meng have just announced a new Panther A, which has had some photographs posted online of it. Don't know any more than that, but I noticed it this week. But that's kind of interesting as well. So it's. I think it's great to see a couple of modern Russian vehicles though, and they do look good. That T90 looks nice, and I think as from me speaking personally, as long as it hasn't got a million parts, I really would like to have a crack at building one.
Doesn't say there whether that tank comes with an interior or not. We shall wait and see.
I would imagine that's unlikely.
Yeah. So let's just say if we got hold of a boxing of that, which one would you want to build, the tank or the vehicle?
Oh, definitely the tank.
Yeah, I'll have the vehicle then. There we go. We're going to get hold of one, and then when it comes out, you build the tank, I'll build the vehicle.
Yeah. I think that'd be kind of interesting. It's been a long time since I've built some 48th scale armor. I used to build loads of it, and I went through a big phase of it, and I haven't built any for ages. And I've seen some builds of the new Tamiya T55, and I do fancy getting back to that. I might grab one actually. I've got some 48 scale armor in the loft. I might grab hold of one of those and see what I can kind of come up with when I'm finished having a nervous breakdown over painting a 72nd scale Lancaster.
Black. Anyway, there's probably people watching that think, what is that? Why do they keep doing that? It's
just Google it. Google the Fast
Show. The Fast Show. A comedy show where they literally wrote one episode and then repeated the jokes across 5 series.
Yes, it's
Every episode
that.
is literally the same joke every week. Anyway, but I do like the
Yes.
Fast Show. Right,
Yes.
Ting, any other business?
No, I don't think so.
No,
So we've got
no.
a theme for.
Yes,
Wednesday
models at the movies.
Models at the movies. Yeah, interesting. And also, but not only models at the movies, in terms of actually what appeared in the movies, but models of things that you could also build from that, because we've gone through those. And I think a lot of people over the years have built kits of things that have, been in films, and you and I have both very excitedly bought 22-inch Eagles from AM, and we still haven't built them, have we?
It's going to have to happen at some stage.
It really
if not
is
now, when?
Yes, indeed. Yeah, and I'm still kicking myself for giving away. I had the recently given to me the recently issued Star Trek Enterprise, and also the Bird of Prey, I think it might have been, and I decided I didn't want to build them, so I gave them away. I'm just going to leave that hanging there, because I still, to this, I mean, it was only a few years ago, I cannot believe that I gave both of those two things away. What an idiot I am.
Simply isn't logical.
No, absolutely.
No. Right. Well, I think that's a wrap for this week. We've overrun. We seem to be veering into 90-minute shows now, and we're impinging on my ghost stories, so that's a bit of a no-no. We'll be back on Wednesday with probably be the start of several episodes we're going to do about models at the movies, because we're not going to fill it all into one show. We're going to,
and we haven't as well forgotten that that we have a number of other things that we were going to talk about. Eshy is one.
Oh, we'll do Eshy night,
and Matchbox is another one.
Matchbox night. We've those. Oh, honestly, we could do dozens of these things. Yeah. Oh, absolutely. No, we will. But yeah, models at the movies for Wednesday. That's good. I'm looking forward to that. I'm going to start prepping for that tomorrow. So, on that note, it just remains for us, as always, to say thank you for giving up your Sunday evening. I know this is a show that people like to tune in and watch religiously. As a penance.
Why?
As a penance. There we go.
Even we don't like to tune in and watch it religiously, although I guess we do it.
I do sometimes watch the show back. I'll kind of skim through it and kind of just to see what worked, what didn't, and and how dreadful I sound. Anyway, on that note, it just
and why you're wearing that preposterous cat on your head.
Because I don't like having a cold head and neck, and it's like a real kind of thing with me that I just can't stand it, and so
right.
Even though I got the heating on in here, I still. It's all right. You're all right for you. You got hair. I haven't. I'm Patrick.
Grow it then. You want just grow your hair.
Do you know what?
Shaving your head.
If it ain't there, mate, there's no point.
Oh yeah, I suppose.
And just to annoy you at some stage, I'm actually going to go on eBay and buy a Star Trek: The Next Generation uniform, and I'm going to do an entire episode one night as Patrick Stewart. I will do the voice and everything, and you will hate me for the rest of your life.
Mm.
So you know what I'm going to do? When I do that, I'm literally going to make it so. Right, on that note, let's go.
Please don't ever do that again.
We are doing the Patrick Stewart episode. On that note, we just remains to say thank you for watching. Stay safe, stay out of trouble, and as always, it's good night from me.
And it's good night from him.
Good night.
Good night.